So whether you're in the market for a new camera or if you already own one, there's 5 things that camera companies probably don't want you to know. The first point has to do with conflict resolution. Let me explain. You see, if your camera doesn't shoot in 4K or 8K or whatever it is that's the latest and greatest resolution, here's what you need to know. Most films ultimately get seen in 1080. Now you might interject and say, but having 8K will allow me to reframe and post without losing quality. And to that, I would say true. But in those rare instances, you could run that 1080 clip through Topaz Video AI or any other quality AI upscaler, and it'll give you back 4K, 8K, or whatever you like. This clip right here was not only shot in 1080, but it was even out of focus, and Topaz gave me back usable 4K. So while it is nice to have the highest resolutions, it's not a make it or break it type of situation. And for all you photographers, the same technology is available for stills. So there you go. Point number 2 has to do with sensory overload. Many people are unaware that the majority of sensors in most cameras are made by Sony. Even the Lumix S5 II, which is currently my favorite camera, uses a sensor made by Sony. That being said, color science is still a thing because the overall image is going to have a lot to do with the camera's processor, not just the sensor. So what does all that mean for you? So let's say you shoot on Nikon, but you really want Fuji colors for a particular project. Then with a simple color space transform in DaVinci and a few minor color corrections, you can get close enough to where most people won't be able to tell the difference. Point number 3 is that when it comes to FPS, more is less. Let me explain. So let's say you want to get some slow-mo. Most cameras these days come with 60 FPS, which is the sweet spot. Any higher than that, let's say 120 or 240, and it's way too slow, and it's only used in very few applications. Now don't get me wrong, I like slow motion like the next guy. You can't think of a good shot for a B-roll scene? Slap some slow-mo on it. You need a sentimental shot in a junk food segment? Slap some slow-mo on it. I mean, I get it, it's an easy out. But it's a little bit past its expiration date, if you know what I mean. But nevertheless, most cameras these days have 60 FPS. And in those rare instances where you need more than that, you could run that 60 FPS clip through Topaz Video AI and it'll give you back footage as slow as you need. And it does a pretty good job. So not having 120 or 240 in your camera isn't as crucial as it used to be. Personally, I use Topaz for all sorts of stuff. So I most definitely recommend you check it out. And if you're interested, I left the link below to Topaz as well as other AI tools that I find useful. Our next point is the whole 10-bit versus 8-bit issue. Many cameras these days have 10-bit color, and some are even offering 12-bit now. So if you're still shooting on an 8-bit camera, which many people are, then here's what you need to know. When it comes to stills, most of those 8-bit cameras output 14-bit color, so no issue there. But if you're a video shooter and 8-bit is bothering you, well, while it is true that 10-bit gives you smoother gradients and that 8-bit can only output 16 million colors, while 10-bit can output a billion, the fact is, if you're shooting for social media like YouTube, then it's going to get heavily compressed anyway, and all that 10-bit advantage is going to be barely noticeable to most viewers. I mean, take a look at these clips that I still use to promote my custom LUTs, which I shot on the Canon M50 and EOS R, which are both 8-bit cameras. But I like the footage so much due to the lighting, the weather, the lens that was used, that I've been too lazy to replace it with updated footage from my S5 II or my Canon R8, which are both 10-bit cameras. So at the end of the day, does it really matter that much? Well, that's up to you. Now to illustrate my 5th point, let me start with the question. Are there any movies or documentaries that you can think of that were shot in the 80s or before that you consider to be masterpieces? For most people, I would venture to say that the majority of the things that you consider on that high of a level were probably shot back in the day. I remember an experiment that a YouTuber named Dan Mace did on his channel, where he took an expensive cinema camera from the 70s and compared the footage to his iPhone. The cinema camera was called the Arri Alexa Flex or something like that, but it was a big, clunky, heavy looking thing, and it could only shoot on rolls of film, which cost about $60 per minute of footage. And for all you young guys out there that only seen the digital age, all you need to know is that it's not like an SD card where once you shoot on it, you could go back, format it, and reshoot. Once you use it, you lose it. And at 60 bucks per minute, I think it's safe to say that most of us will go broke pretty quick. Nevertheless, the results of the experiment were pretty interesting. The cinema camera had its own vibe. There were certain scenes where it looked nicer than the iPhone. It had that vintage look. But I have to say that in most of the shots, the iPhone had it beat. Now I want you to imagine if you would have approached one of those filmmakers from the 70s and offered to trade him your super compact, super powerful mirrorless camera that you could shoot unlimited footage on for his clunky, expensive cinema camera. I'm pretty confident that that's a trade he'd be willing to make. My point is that the camera you currently have is more convenient and more powerful than the camera that was used to shoot most of those masterpieces that you mentioned earlier. So why is it that camera companies don't want you to know this? Simply because once you know, it's harder to get you caught up in FOMO and gas, leading to fewer sales for camera companies. Now you guys know that I make the majority of my money on this channel through affiliate links of my camera gear reviews. So it may seem counterproductive for me to be telling you this, but in actuality, it's really not, because I want you to do well and to be able to buy all the latest and greatest gear that you like through my affiliate links, of course. But what I don't want you to do is let your camera collect dust because you've been led to believe that you have to have the most updated gear to be able to make something meaningful. I mean, is it nice to have? Sure. Is it necessary? Not at all. So make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content. And most important of all, pick up your camera and go out there and make something good. Now that being said, if you are curious about my favorite cameras for YouTube and content creation in general, then make sure to watch this video next, where I give you my top 5 cameras for content creators. I appreciate you watching to the end, and I'll see you in the next one. It's Fulan Creative, and I'm out. Peace.